This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome to the Row 1 Seat 1 podcast. This is Ben, aka Boston Nougat. We're back in the saddle, folks. I took some time off last fall and wanted to first of all say thank you to the fine people at Place to Be Nation, Scott Criscolo, Jennifer Smith, JT Rosero. Thank you guys for letting me take some time. Mental health is a real thing, and I got really just pissed off and bitter at wrestling life in general, and I needed to take some time, but I feel rejuvenated now. I feel like there is a new wave of independent wrestling that I want to expose to you guys. I want to let you guys know about. I want to really kind of the goal of this show really has been to let you guys know about the three-dimensional people involved in independent wrestling. That's what I try to do. That's what I think independent wrestling can really show you. For those unfamiliar with this show, this is a little bit different than a lot of the shows you'll hear on Place to Be. I'm an independent. My name is Ben. I go to independent wrestling shows pretty much every weekend, all across the country. I'm very lucky and blessed enough to have some wonderful relationships, not just in the Southeast where I live. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but really throughout the country. There's some really cool, really fun, really fascinating people in this world of independent wrestling. Ones who aren't necessarily making it full-time, but are trying to make it full-time. And my goal with this show is to just try to highlight some of those stories. A couple of those stories you'll hear on this show are those from John Mosley and Ron Bass Jr. They are two of the rising stars, one in the world of commentary and another in the wrestling world. Obviously, Ron Bass Jr., he's the son of the Outlaw Ron Bass. Amazing story, amazing guy, and definitely shoots from the hip. John Mosley is a ring announcer, commentator, conciliary extraordinaire in the world of wrestling in the Southeast, and I think you'll really enjoy the interview with him as well. What you guys heard in the intro, that's going to be our permanent theme song, folks. That's from the band Heel Turn. They are a hardcore band that sings about professional wrestling. Let me repeat that for it bears repeating. They are a hardcore metal band that sings about professional wrestling. Once again, just wanted to thank the fine people at Place to Be. Want to thank you guys for kind of hanging with me a little bit here. And kind of a call to action a little bit too. If you know people in the world of independent wrestling who have a cool story, who are a very interesting person, if interesting things to say, something to tell, want to get their name out there, hit me up. I'm at Boston Nougat on Twitter. That's probably the best way to find me. I want to know about your story. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know the why as much as the what of why you're involved in professional wrestling. That being said, I think we're going to get going with the show. It's been a wild couple months. Pandemic wrestling, it's had its goods and bads. I think we've learned a few things from pandemic wrestling, but I think that we're finally starting to come out of it a little bit and are kind of rounding the corner into normalcy. I've been to shows the last few weekends, and it just feels like coming home. Seeing my family after a little over a year. So it's really finally starting to get back. You'll be able to finally see independent wrestling in and around where you live, and hopefully with little to no restrictions on that eventually. And I just want to tell those stories. So once again, thank you for listening. I'm going to have Ron Bass Jr. on now. Afterwards, we're going to have Jumpin' Johnny Mosley, and we're going to be on to the show. I am here with one of the very exciting, very different, and genuinely good human beings on the independent wrestling scene who's just coming up. I am here with Ron Bass Jr. Ron, welcome to the show.
What's up, pal? I'm smiling right now. Cause
we're going to go into Paradigm Pro Wrestling, which is a promotion out of Indiana, and their no hook presentation, and they put on a great show, and you are a strong part of it. Ron, talk a little bit about your background, because obviously, obviously, you're Ron Bass Jr. Is that a shoot?
Yes, sir. That is a shoot. And at first people used to ask me that, and I'd get offended, and then I realized that there are terrible people in this world, and I have to remember there are awful people that would fake being related to someone that is dead just for clout. But yes, that is a shoot.
The Outlaw Ron Bass
is my father.
Is your father. Hero of our 1980s wrestling, man who worked everywhere and anywhere, right?
Yeah, that was like when the territories were a thing, which modern day independent wrestling is just modern day territories. That's all it is.
That's fair. So you had a much different childhood than most. Talk about your dad being a wrestler. I mean, did you have to move a lot? Was it one of those sort of things where...
Actually, contrary to popular belief, I had a pretty normal childhood because by the time I was born, my dad had already retired. My siblings, on the other hand, had the more stereotypical wrestler to child, like wrestler's child relationship, where dad was gone all the time, always staying with their mom or my mom. You know what I mean? Like that's
That's the lifestyle they went through. Well, I mean, you were lucky in that regard then, because you got to grow up foundationally with the Outlaw Ron Bass as your dad. Talk about him as a father.
I mean, he was like he was a good man 100% of the way. He was just your stereotypical Southern like dad that was a wrestler. And what I mean like that is like the few places that we would go, because like my dad was a creature of habit. But everyone would know who he was. We went to a small, like, 500-person Baptist church growing up. Everyone there obviously knew who my dad was. Like, different, obviously, like, I had relationships with different wrestlers that lived in Florida at the time as well. But yeah, like, it was, my parents got divorced really early on. So this just shows, like, how much of a creature of habit my dad was. There was a weekend, on weekends that I would go stay with my dad. We would go to church on Sunday morning, and there was one of like 3 places we would go to eat after church. And to the point where the people at the Red Lobster would be like, oh, they used to use his shoot last name, obviously. They'd be like, oh, Mr. Hurd, a booth, right, over by the window? And he'd be like, yep, and then go put him there. We used to go to this Chinese buffet down here. I mean, it's been gone for probably 10 plus years, but when I was a kid, it was like one of the places, and they knew our drink order. and it was the same guy that would take care of us. So he would always be like, hey, drink. Like, for him it was a Diet Coke, and for me it was a Dr. Pepper. And we but every time without fail. I still remember and this is like a habit I picked up on. I can talk forever, by the way. This is going to go on for a while.
We're going to go, brother.
Yeah, and this is something I do now. I can't go to a Chinese buffet without starting my meal with an egg drop soup.
It's a fine way to start it, my friend.
Because that's what my dad used to do. And it's a habit I picked up from him.
That's so cool, though. So you grew up in Florida.
Yep.
And you mentioned there was a lot of wrestlers around. I mean, obviously your dad knew everyone and anyone under the sun. What sort of random chance wrestling encounters did you have that you sort of took for granted back then, and you're like, oh wow, that was this dude? Like, oh my god, I can't believe that like my childhood involved this human being.
The two that so when they happened more when I was older, like in my late teens going into young adulthood, but as like a younger kid, my relationship with Dusty Rhodes was the most like prevalent and memorable one. Like I used to go to show, like when my dad got his health back in order and started taking like independent bookings and like convention bookings. He started calling me little one, and he called me little one until I was 17 and 6'4". It was either little one or little man. So like you would hear me, like I'd walk into the locker room and I'd be like, "Hey, what's there's Ron Bass's little man. How we doing, baby?" In typical Dusty fashion, like. And anytime he was in Tampa, anytime I was in Tampa, he would come watch me wrestle. Not wrestle, sorry, I didn't wrestle in high school. He would come watch me play football.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he would come watch me play football. The only other relationship I really have that has like real memories, and like I don't even know if he remembers if I asked him about this. Jake Roberts and I always had a very interesting relationships at like conventions and whatnot.
Okay.
Jake and I always had very interesting. So what I mean by that is Jake used to fucking bully. Am I allowed to cuss? I'm sorry. I just did it without asking.
Just say what the fuck you want.
Okay, cool. Jake Roberts used to bully the fuck out of me. But this was before Jake was sober.
Oh shit.
So I was like 13, 14 years old, and my dad did like a wrestle reunion or a wrestle con when the first time they were in Miami in like 2006. 2007, and they got my dad a hotel room and whatever. We stayed there. We come down and I'm waiting for my dad to like come down so we can go like hang out at the convention and stuff. And I'm sitting in this chair in the lobby of this nice ass hotel. To me it was nice at the time. And I used to have this camo that I got from like a thrift store when I was a kid. I had this camo Stone Cold Steve Austin hat, like ball cap. And so, like, Jake, we met each other the day before, and he used to, like, just poke and prod at me, give me little nudges here and there throughout the day. And then the next day, to fuck with me, he knocked it off my head and then kicked it across the lobby of this hotel. And I'm talking not like 10 feet, not like 20 feet. I'm like talking like 150 feet across, like would kick it, and as I would come, he would kick it again. And then as I would come, he would kick it again.
And you're just a kid and he's fucking with you. That's tremendous stuff. That's absolutely tremendous stuff. So we'll go into the wrestling stuff later, but like from being a good person, being a man, being, responsible perspective, what did you really pull from your dad that, stays indelibly with you now? Just being a good person, being a man, being, what life lessons did you pull from your dad that, you sit every day and go, yep, this is what my dad taught me. This is how I'm going to be.
A man only has two things. At the end of the day, a man is only as good as his word, as like the strength of his word and his last name. So, and what I mean by that is a man's only as good as his word. So, obviously that one kind of speaks for itself,
Yeah.
If a man's known for being dishonest, like the things that he says being dishonest, no one's going to give a shit about him. And those kind of go hand in hand. So like, if I come from a family that's known to be real shitty, I'm going to start a foot behind, you know what I mean?
Sure.
If my last name has some negative connotation to it, like I'll talk about it, and I told you in our pre-talk, like I don't care, I'll talk about anything. Like Chris Benoit's son wanting to be a wrestler is my example, and him wanting to use his dad's name. Yeah. His dad's not really known as a good dude anymore.
No, he's not.
Like, a man is only as good as his word and his last name. Well, that last name is not worth anything. Our last name, as far as Bass and our shoot last name, as people, we are known to be good people. And I've always wanted to uphold that. My dad was a lot like his wrestling friends when he passed away. They'll all tell you the same thing. My dad was a good wrestler, but he was 10 times a better man. He was always a better man than he was a wrestler. Not that he was ever a bad wrestler, but he was a much better man than he was wrestler.
That's the important thing, man.
Yeah. And that's my biggest thing is I have a last name that I'm proud of, and I have someone that I'm proud to represent, and I want to make sure I do that to the best of my abilities.
Was your dad still around when you expressed interest into getting into the wrestling business?
Unfortunately, he was not.
Okay.
So there was once, actually he was, and then when I really got full on into training, he had already passed.
Sure.
because there was a school that was close. There was a friend of his that ran a school that was close to where where I was living at the time. So I asked him to take me, and like, there's a picture of him just walking like in the ring. That's the background of my phone. And he trained me. Him and that guy trained me for like one day. And then I just, like, the guy had issues with the building he was using, so I stopped going there. That was the biggest thing, to backtrack. My dad never forced me into wrestling. So, like, growing up, wrestling was always hey, like, if this is what you want to do it for you and don't do it for anyone else. I support you no matter what you decide to do, but if wrestling's, like, obviously deep down, like, all he ever wanted was for me to wrestle, like, deep down, naturally. But, like, growing up, that he was always, it was always my decision to make, never his. Like, he never wanted to make the decision for me. But then, unfortunately, you know, Dad passed away. I kind of spiraled into, like, a brief, bout with alcohol, like, without, like, drinking. Like, I had a real bad drinking problem for, like, a year, almost 2 years. And I can admit to that, because that's what happens when, you know, your hero, like, your entire world just is gone. And, but, so the one day, there was just one day in 2018, it was like, I remember the month. It was August of 2018, because I started training in January of that year. August of 2018, I literally just woke up one morning and it was like, hey, get your shit together. Like, hey, today's the day. Like, you either find a school or you never become a wrestler. And, as much as I appreciate that guy, the guy that my dad did that one day of training with me, he was willing to train me for free. But I owed it to myself and to, like, my dad and the legacy that we have, that we're going to continue to have now, to get trained by the best training I could get, which is.
So I was going to say, so really the why of you getting into wrestling, the impetus for you getting into wrestling, was it to honor your father, or was it just, if your dad was Ron Smith, would you still have become a professional wrestler?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not, but that I can't. I don't know. I would never know for sure. You know what I mean? Wrestling was always just something, like, for me, wrestling was always just something that was a part of my life. So it's not like I just got into it just because my dad was a wrestler who passed away. Like, because of, like, his influence, I grew up watching wrestling like an addict. Like, I loved wrestling, all types of wrestling. I, like, at least once a weekend, like, I would stay with him when my parents got divorced, every other weekend, Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons before we would go to the movie theater to watch a movie. I would be like, hey, Dad, can we watch one of your tapes, and can you tell me about what's going on? Whether it was, like, old tapes, old territory tapes, whatever it was.
And you dove head first into it too, because a lot of children of wrestlers, when they get into the business, I mean, you could have been just Big Cowboy Joe.
Yeah.
And not necessarily run from your legacy, but, you know, not embrace it either. But you decided to be Ron Bass Jr. Talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, and that's and me being Ron Bass Jr. is it's one of two things. A, it's just easy. Ron Bass Jr. just sounds good.
It does sound good.
Ron Bass Jr. sounds better than, like, Kurt. Like, if I'll just use shoot names in my life. Like, my brother is Ronald Scott Hurd. Like, named after my dad, but it has a middle name. My dad never had a middle name. Like, Scott Bass don't sound right. Joseph Bass doesn't sound right. Curtis Bass don't sound right.
Sure.
Like, if I was gonna be, once I decided to go by Ron Bass Jr., it was real quick to realize that there was nothing else that was gonna work. Like, there was nothing else that was gonna sound right. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
And for people who haven't seen you wrestle, you're 6'4", 6'5"?
So I'm a big old piece of shit. I'm 6'5", 344 pounds.
You wrestle like a Ron Bass Jr. That's my point.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very befitting name, you know, for the way you wrestle and the way you work and the way you look. Like, it's you. It's very much you. And I mean that in the highest compliment possible.
I appreciate that, yeah.
So you got into the business, you said 2018 or so. You know, it's been around 2 years. What valuable lessons have you learned, you know, during that period of time? We'll obviously go into, you know, some of the things you've encountered.
Yeah. My biggest thing that I've learned is you don't get better unless you wrestle people better than you. as crazy as that sounds, like as far as like wrestling goes, my biggest takeaway in the 2 years that I've been wrestling is you won't get better if you don't wrestle people out of your comfort zone that you know are better than you.
That makes complete and I am a firm believer in that with younger wrestlers too. I think that you need to not just get reps, but get good reps.
Yeah, exactly. And you need to travel, leave your home not as often as you can. And that's only from me, like personal experience and like my stories I've been told from guys outside of their states, like the Dirty Orphan Gang boys that are all from Michigan. Like the best thing that happened to them and myself is that we left. We left our respective homes and got out and realized that there's a much bigger and better world of wrestling outside of 40 miles.
You also happen to be in Florida, which
Florida's terrible. Florida's fucking terrible.
Has a reputation of a terrible fucking wasteland fraught with
here's the
really
thing.
Bad people in a lot of cases.
But it's also that Florida is this own self-destructive bubble. So what I mean by that is like one of my vets and I were on the phone yesterday and we were talking about it a little bit. There's no promotion, like no one outside of Florida looks at Florida and gives a shit. With the like John Davis comes from Florida, but that man he has an outstanding career. I don't count him. You know what I mean?
He'd be a star in South Dakota. Yeah.
What's up?
He'd be a star in South Dakota. He'd be a star in Montana.
Exactly. He's a star everywhere he goes. He's not a Florida guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm slowly not becoming a Florida guy anymore. But like, there's no promotions or anyone like that you hear about outside of Florida because no one gives a shit. And
when they do give a shit, it's not for the best reasons.
No. And then the other thing is, the Florida guys are so obsessed with just making it in Florida because, oh man, like I could get some extra work, or like I could get on Dark, like if I just make the right connections, blah, 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 instead of going to make yourself undeniable and having those people call you. So they don't know anything about wrestling outside of Florida. And like, for example, and this is just me because I love him and I've been a fan of him since I started wrestling, because he used to come work a promotion in Florida. It is criminal to me that people in Florida don't know who the Carnies are and don't know who Kerry and Nick Iggy are.
Speaking of my friends right here, yeah, definitely, yeah.
It is criminal that there are dudes in Florida that don't know that. And also, like, it's also just like the exposure aspect of there's not a single Florida promotion on IWTV. Trust me, I've looked.
I didn't think of that.
For some reason, everyone in Florida wants to run Fight, and nobody watches Fight TV for nothing.
Boy, shooting, I love it. I'm
leaving. I'm leaving, and I've made it abundantly clear to all the people I care about in Florida that I'm gone. So, like, I don't care. Like, the only thing that's keeping me in Florida is that my mama lives here. If my mom didn't live here, I'd have been gone 6 months ago.
So you, I guess for lack of a better term, would call it a crew, but it's really kind of a little family you guys have put together. Talk to me about the Dirty Orphan Gang. People don't know about the Dirty Orphan Gang. Tell them
they should.
What this is. Yeah.
The Dirty Orphan Gang is a collective of people brought together by Nolan Edward. So I'll give you a little backstory. If people didn't know, Nolan Edward is a real orphan. He talks about it. He's always talked about it. Nolan Edward is a real orphan. What people don't know about me, and this is probably I should have given you the heads up on this, and before, I'm actually adopted. Outlaw Ron Bass is my adopted father. But but my adoption process was started before I was born. It's like a fucking Lifetime movie. Like, my biological family had a relationship with my mom and dad through my biological great-grandmother. She lived in Florida, attended the same church as my parents that raised me. So they would come to Florida and visit, and they would meet all the church people, and they knew my parents. So when my biological mom, she was 16 when she got pregnant and I was born. So when she had me, she knew immediately that my mom and dad were the people that needed to have her son. So fast forward to me being born and them going to the hospital, my biological dad and his side of the family didn't want me put up for adoption, even though he was a no good, low down, shoot human piece of shit. They didn't want me put up for adoption. So they tried to kidnap me from the hospital.
Good Lord.
I was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, just to put that one out there. They tried to kidnap me from the hospital. So you know what happens there? Because of the safety and well-being of the baby, I was then put in custody of the state for 24 hours. Like you could not come see me without nurse and police supervision. So becoming a member, like being in custody of the state, I was the way Nolan likes to describe it is you're the closest thing to a shoot orphan in wrestling that I know. So originally the Dirty Orphan Gang was just Nolan, and then Nolan and I became close friends, and then it was Nolan and I, and then some people in Michigan tried to get real. They just tried to do some real shady shit with his friends from Michigan, and then that's when Nolan drew the line in the sand that the Dirty Orphan Gang isn't just him. It isn't just him. It's not him and I. It's the people that he found that he calls family. So it's like Dirty Orphan Gang and gang affiliates. So like KOBK would be a perfect example. They're their own separate crew, but if they weren't, they would probably be DOG. But those guys, go ahead.
I want to apply to be your wacky uncle, frankly.
Well, we have things called gang affiliates. Is what we call them. Like the faction I'm in here down, like at home, my tag partners at home, they are included in gang affiliation. As awful as that sounds on paper, they are gang affiliated.
So what does that gang mean to you?
Those are my best friends.
Okay.
Those are my brothers. The way I pitched it in the group chat is one of the multiple reasons we are now the Dirty Orphan Gang is because with an orphan you don't have a family, you don't necessarily have a home. One reason that we're doing so well as the Dirty Orphan Gang is because our homes didn't want us. Florida didn't give a shit about me until I started going places. Michigan didn't give a shit about those guys until they started going places. And hopping in cars and going places. You know what I mean? For me, it was the connection for me was Nolan worked a promotion here in Florida, like did some tapings, and that's where him and I met, and that's where we hit it off. We became friends. We would DM back and forth on Twitter sometimes. Like I'd have some bad mental health days, and he would check in on me, and then I lost my job. And then that was the weekend that I believe you and I met, Ben. That JD versus Nolan. Nolan was hey. Nolan was like, hey, just come stay with me. Like, get out. Like, I got you. And then ever since then, like, he put in a good word for me at Paradigm. And then the rest, right now, as far as my career trajectory, the rest is history.
And I think that's what people, view independent wrestling as just a weekend thing. And people view independent wrestling as, 40 milers or things like that. Or there are real bonds being made here. There's real family-like connections being made among wrestlers and fans, and it's not just a once in a while thing. This is your life.
Oh, absolutely. Those guys are my brothers. Like those guys are some of my best friends. Like I would take bullets for every single one of them without question in a heartbeat. Like so I would go 10 rounds with Mike Tyson for those guys.
So you mentioned you started to work a little bit around and travel a good bit. Talk about some of the places that you've gone, where you think you've got a little bit of a break here and there, where you're seeing yourself. Talk about a little about. It's been a little over a 2-year career here. But I think you started to really establish yourself in a very short time.
Yeah. So we were actually on track to blow up in Florida. And I don't ever really try to talk about myself like that, but I'm just following the pattern of what was happening. So in 2019, my partner and I debuted as a tag team called the Good Old Boys. We just wanted to be your traditional Southern style tag team. We wanted to be the Brainbusters. My tag partner, Daniel Starling, he's my best friend in the entire world, criminally underappreciated in the state of Florida. He is from Virginia, and he packed up everything and moved to Florida to train with Jay and be a wrestler. Gave up his entire life to come here.
And Jay being?
Jay Lethal.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry, Jay Lethal.
Yeah.
Jay Lethal is our trainer. He's the name on the school, like that we went to. And then he's not just the name on the school. He had a pivotal hand in all of my training. And that was even when he was world champion, was when I started there, was when he was world champ.
That's a tremendous pedigree, by the way.
Yes. Just wait until I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but it was him, and then there was a very talented Florida wrestler, Florida vet named David Mercury. He's calls himself the technical alchemist. He's really good, big fan. As far as like Florida pedigree, he adds to it, and then they added Big Con, formerly known as Connor of the Ascension.
Wait, Big Con is training with you guys?
Yeah, he's the third trainer at our school.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's the reason I got as good as I did so quick, was because I could finally learn from another big guy. I could learn how to be a big guy from another big guy, which was pivotal in my wrestling ability and being a better wrestler. Without a doubt, him coming around is fundamental in my training. But we started in 2019, and again, like good old boys at the time, the social political climate of the country, it wasn't where it's at now. And we weren't trying to come off as crazy hillbillies or whatever. We were just trying to be a traditional Southern tag team, like the Brainbusters, like the Midnight Express, things like that. We love tag team wrestling. My partner grew up on Mid-Atlantic and all that kind of old territory stuff. And people were taking in Florida at least, and like a small company in South Georgia, they were taking a liking to us real quickly. Like beginning January and going into spring of 2020, we were booked every weekend into April, which is crazy to think about when it's a tag team that's only been out on the scene for like 6 months.
I was going to say, a tag team with your level of experience, that's what a lot of guys dream of.
But that's exactly what it is. Like we were wrestling every weekend. We were going to Georgia, and Georgia was paying us better than anyone else had paid us at the time too, as a tag team. Like they were paying us more than anyone else had paid us. And then obviously the world shut down.
Yeah, as a wrestler, just getting your footing, just getting into the business, starting to get a little bit of momentum. Then the pandemic hits. How did this last 15 months affect your development? So how did the pandemic either build your growth or stunt your growth?
So, like I said, inadvertently, obviously it did stunt our growth, everyone's growth, a whole lot for the most part. But also, it inadvertently helped me more than it hurt me, in the sense of, if it wasn't for the pandemic happening, that local company that introduced Nolan and I would have never ran that show. They would have never ran those tapings. And at that point, there was probably no chance that I was going to wrestle for them that soon. And I tell the guy that runs that company all the time that he's inadvertently the reason I'm where I'm at now, because he introduced Nolan and I. But on top of that, if it wasn't for that, I would have never wrestled John Davis. And John Davis is the man. And not only that, is John Davis. I had a good enough match with John Davis that people took notice. And it was John asking for me because he heard who I was.
That's how these dominoes fall sometimes.
Yeah. As I walked in, let them know, like I walked into the venue that we were doing the recordings at, and I let them know who I was, and they were just like, okay, cool. And then John was like, yeah, I'll take the new kid. In hindsight, it's a match that I was not ready for. Just on multiple levels. Like, I had no confidence in myself. Like, I didn't know who I was as a wrestler. Like, I knew who I was as a gimmick, but like not as like I didn't have that confidence. But now it's a different story.
I was going to say, one thing we talked about, through our friendship is self-criticism. Is that you like a lot of us are very self-critical, very hard on yourself, very much one who goes back and says, okay.
Oh, I fucking hate I hate every match I've ever wrestled.
But what do you pull from that, and how does that self-criticism and or self-loathing make you a better wrestler and more developed? How does your level of self-criticism and or self-loathing make you a better wrestler?
For me, it comes down to the point where I want to get to a level where I don't hate my wrestling anymore. I'll get real. And I'll get deep with you here on the on the episode, and I'll keep it 100% honest. Like, there is a part of me that struggles with my wrestling because I'll never get to hear the physical words of my dad telling me he's proud of me. And that's just the reality of it. And I'm not afraid to admit that, Like, that's something I struggle with a lot. And for me right now, like, as far as wrestling goes, is like, I want to get to the point where I'm tired of hating the way I look. And I think once I stop hating the way I look physically, cause like everyone, you know, like I could look healthier, and I would like to be healthier and lose weight and things like that. And that's stuff I'm actively working on. Besides tonight, you know, eating Checkers, but I fell asleep after work and didn't get up until it was too late.
It's fair. It's
and
fair.
I don't have groceries today. But like, I feel like that'll be that, and that way, mentally, once I stop not liking and like disliking myself and my wrestling, like, I feel like I'll get closer to that personal desire to want him to be proud of me, because I know he just wants me to be the best that I can. You know what I mean? And I know that you'll never be the best that you can be, that you want to be. But once I start appreciating my wrestling, I think I'll be in the right direction.
For someone so new into the business, though, you've worked some banner places, especially for, you know, your experience level and, you know, coming from Florida and all that. You know, you worked, you know, Action Wrestling, you worked Paradigm, you worked Crux, you worked Unsanctioned Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a spade of luck, or is it one domino falling on another? Or you got some momentum going.
So it is. It's a mix of two things. It's me being the person that I am, and building building like, if I was a piece of shit, none of these people would put their names. You know, if I was a piece of shit, no one would put their stamp of approval on me. So it's a mix of the right dominoes falling into the right place. It's all kind of a chain reaction. Like, I showed up at Action the first time with Nolan, like just to hang out. I introduced myself to Matt. I helped tear down. I did security spot for them. Like, I helped everywhere I could. My relationship with Nolan grew. Nolan told the guys at Paradigm to book me. So then I show up to Paradigm, not only build my relationships, but I have good wrestling matches, and I impress them. So then they bring me back there. I then get booked again for Paradigm. On top of that, I plan on making a stop by Action Wrestling. So I messaged Matt ahead of time, like, hey, Matt, I'm going to be in town. Is it cool if I just come help out at the show again? I did the humble way and asked him if I could come help. And Matt DMs me the next day. He's like, hey, I appreciate your willingness just to come and help out. I found something for you. Here you go. Had that match with Orion Bishop. Pretty good match. I realized that the fans of Action Wrestling really do appreciate a hoss fight. So then that continued my momentum going into the next Paradigm weekend that I was a part of. Met some people, built some relationships. Fast forward the week of the Collective. The week of, WrestleMania weekend, the Collective. Bunch of guys. One guy gets COVID, another guy gets moved into a different match. Some spots open up in a scramble for Unsanctioned Pro on their Collective show. One of the guys in the scramble that was helping out the booker and the promoter, giving him, one of the Florida guys at the time, Freddie Hudson. The guys from Indiana, Freddie had moved to Florida, asked me to look out for him. He ended up living 10 minutes from my apartment. We became really close best friends.
Freddie's a great wrestler, by the way, too.
He's a fantastic wrestler. So Freddie tells the guy from Unsanctioned, hey, you should book him. Like, you should use him. He's a local talent. He's better than others. Like, you should use him. So Derek, the guy that runs Unsanctioned, he reaches out to a couple other people that have wrestled Paradigm and whatnot. One of them being Cole Radrick. And again, this harkens back to building my, the relationships I built. Cole and I have a mutual respect. Like, we have a respect for one another. Met him at Paradigm, whatnot, and he put his stamp of approval on me. So then Derek booked me.
So it's a snowball effect, essentially.
It's a snowball effect.
You act like a good person, or you actually are a good person.
Yeah.
And you impress in the spots that you're given.
Exactly.
So from here,
I said a whole bunch of nonsense for you to summarize it so well like that.
So from here, you got some momentum going. The snowball's rolling down the hill. You're talented, big, young. How old are you?
I'm 27.
So you're a big, young wrestler. You're relatively new in the business. What's the 1-year plan? What's the 5-year plan? What's the 10-year plan?
So it's all pretty much the same. Like, the big picture is I just want to be able to wrestle full time. Whether that takes 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. And it's cliche. It's cliche as shit, but like, I just want to continue to wrestle until I become a household name. and I'm talking like, and I mean just independently a household name. You know what I mean? I want to be that guy that everyone knows. Everyone's like, okay, he needs to, like, you need to book him. Not just locally. Like, I want to become the guy that where like places have no choice but to use me because of how good I am. As far as like dream destinations go, and I always have trouble putting a list out there because then I'm afraid it's going to retroactively.
Yeah, you can just generalize, but also like what's the
I want to wrestle in. I want to wrestle in Florida less and less. Obviously, like I plan on relocating, but that's besides the point. Like I want to wrestle in Florida less and less. I want to wrestle out more and more. I want to venture further and further out. Like right now, I'm in like a niche area. I've wrestled in a niche area of like Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Indiana. This weird like middle belt of like that's kind of the South, but kind of the Midwest, kind of the North. Like it's weird. Like I want to start expanding west. I want to go to like Texas. I want to go to all those like mid-South states. I want to continue up the East Coast. You know what I mean? I really want to wrestle more in Tennessee because I just love Tennessee.
We would love for you to wrestle in Tennessee as well, because I think that you really add something to the Tennessee scene that isn't seen right now and isn't represented both from a skill perspective, from a size perspective, from a legacy perspective. From you're different. I guess that's my point.
I walk into a room and I stand out. Let's call a spade a spade. At least I do down here,
Oh, you do up here too?
Yeah, I walk into a room and I stand out, and I would like to continue to do that. Speaking of Tennessee, there's a tournament coming up.
There is.
There's a tournament coming up.
My home right here. Yes. Talk to me about another goal you might have.
I mean, I want to wrestle SCI. I want to wrestle SCI one day very badly. I think SCI is like a top tier. Like I knew about SCI when I was first started training. Like I paid attention. I always paid attention to indies outside of Florida. So like SCI is something I knew about. I've known about for years, and I've always wanted to be a part of. Obviously, they just made their final announcement tonight. The things are full, but something they also do. They didn't do it last year, but they ran it separately. Is there's a little future showcase going on, and I want a fucking part of it.
We'd love to have you part of it.
That
would be real cool on my end.
Because if you have a future showcase for people that have been wrestling for less than a certain amount of time, and allow me to talk my shit for a moment, there are very few people that have seen you. Let's call a spade a spade. As far as like Paradigm in Action is concerned, I came out of fucking nowhere. I have my last name, but I was a no-name wrestler out of Florida at the time. Like I came out of nowhere and I made my mark. You know what I mean? I've established myself. When you're putting guys like, and I mean this respectfully, when you're putting guys like when Alex Kane's in full on SCI, and one of his first like 5 matches at least in Florida was me in a tag match. Like if he's willing to wrestle me, and we can have a good match. Imagine what I can do with all these other guys.
You're making a hell of a case. So we would love to see you in SCI. We would love to see you all around. I think you're a hell of a wrestler. I think you're a better person. And how do people get in touch with you if a promoter's listening to this, or if a fan's listening to this wants to see one of your matches, or how can people either book or see Ron Bass Jr.?
It's real simple. You can book me one of 3 ways. Through my Facebook, not my Facebook. I'm sorry. Because I only have my personal Facebook. I don't have like a separate page to take bookings. My email is bookronbassjr@gmail.com. That's the email I use. That's my booking email.
Brilliant.
And if you find me on Twitter or Instagram and DM me, we can discuss bookings, because as long as there's a physical paper trail, obviously for business reasons, my Twitter and my Instagram are the same, at Ron Bass Jr.
I love it. Anything else you want to get off your chest before we sign off for the night?
You don't want to ask me that. How do you feel about aliens, Ben? But yeah, Ron Bass Jr. for futures, Ron Bass Jr. for the world.
I love it.
If it ain't my fucking people, it ain't my fucking problem.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ron. You're one that we're going to be looking out for, and just all the luck in the world, man. All the best in the world. You're one of the good ones.
I'm glad somebody thinks so, because I fucking hate myself. Thanks, man.
Thank you. We are here with Jumpin' Johnny Mosley. Who gave you that nickname, by the way?
Dylan.
Did he really?
Yeah.
What is there any context to it whatsoever? Because I just know you as Mose. Everyone knows you as Mose. We're here with John Mosley. Announcer extraordinaire, ring announcer extraordinaire, play-by-play man extraordinaire, color man extraordinaire, the Swiss Army knife, basically, of Southern independent wrestling, and the breakout star, in my opinion, of the pandemic, in any capacity in wrestling whatsoever. I wanted to have Mose on as my first guest because you're the dude right now, and but let's get into jumping, because I've literally never seen you jump, and I've known you for years. What the hell is Jumpin' Johnny Mosley?
Well, I mean, I do jump around. Like, when it happened, when he said it, he was introing an action show, and I remember looking at him, and as he's saying it, it's almost like that thing where he started to talk. I mean, I do it in ring sometimes. Like, you start to talk before you realize what you're saying, and he said it, and we ran with it. But maybe Dylan's on that next level because I do jump around. I mean, I get excited. Anyone that watched the Billy Starks, Gary J match from Family Reunion, man, I'm in the background just going crazy.
So you're like the closest thing in like announcing, like you and Dylan, to an extent as well, like to that Joe Rogan gif where he's like going apeshit, at the UFC show. Like that's like you guys at a show, and it's really infectious as someone in the crowd. It's like, yo, the announcers are losing their shit, so like I in turn have to lose my shit, and it's a really cool osmosis thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it at times. That's something that, a few months ago, a year ago, I may have tried to be a little more by the book, I guess, a little more conservative with that. But, man, that's how I feel. That's how, like you said, Dylan's the same way. He gets very excited. So that's just genuine, man. That's real. Like, I love doing, doing what I get to do.
Actually, to that point, we're going to go into, backstory and all that, but to that point, the hardest thing I would see of being an announcer or a ring announcer or something like that is keeping up the level of enthusiasm, especially if something is the drizzling shits. Is that difficult? Is that, because you're like, you're from an 8 to a 10 all the time.
Yeah.
Even when something doesn't necessarily necessitate an 8 to a 10, you're still conveying enthusiasm for something that, I'm watching and I'm just like, yo, Moses into this, but like, this kind of blows.
Hey, man. I'm trying. Thankfully, I'm at a lot of places right now where there's a lot more good than not good. My first, I don't even want to say the first stages of commentary. I was so bad, but it was at a promotion, a small town promotion in Tennessee. And, I saw some rough matches there, that I did commentary for, and I myself was not good at commentary. So it just, as a whole, man, it's just, sometimes I watch those now and I can see flashes of like, oh man, that's not bad. And then a lot of like, what am I doing? So that stuck with me, man. It's the same thing as just life, lessons that like, even the bad stuff we can learn from. And that's something I take pride in. Like, it happens in wrestling. There's mistakes, there are people, in the wrong spot at times. I try to cover that up as best I can, but it's just all about the product, trying to make the absolute best product where hypothetically, if you are at home watching a match that maybe you find yourself not totally into, maybe you catch, there is something that you can kind of catch and get you back in. And I take pride if I can do that.
And if in doubt, you'll make a pop culture reference that'll completely pop me in a match that's terrible, and it'll just completely, like, I know you'll make it for like 5 people, but I'm one of those 5 people, and it'll just pop me so hard.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. I'm getting away with more now.
You are.
I absolutely am getting away with more. I without a doubt, I never want to take away from the product, but if I can get in a line that, like you said, literally, sometimes it's for one person that I know will see it and laugh. Sometimes it's for a Ben Zaney. Sometimes it's for a Brett Ice, and sometimes it's for Big Dave. I got Big Dave. I said something on Action Clash a week or two ago that Dave still, when he sees me, he's like, I am so happy you said that.
So who is John Mosley? How did you get from A to B here?
Man, just luck. Right place, right time, man. Life. I graduated from ETSU. And
that's East Tennessee State University, because
tell them,
Fighting Buccaneers. Tell them,
baby. We ETSU, Johnson City, Tennessee. I met my now wife before I was actually starting school at MTSU, and
you don't deserve, by the way.
I don't. No, I openly admit that. I ask her weekly, when is she going to smarten up and be like, the juice is it worth the squeeze? But she assures me it is.
Stockholm syndrome is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, thankful, very thankful, blessed. I met her. I mean, a month before I was going to move to Murfreesboro. We moved. She came with me. It's kind of one of those, like, everything kind of worked, and she took a leap of faith and went with me. And we hated Murfreesboro. I didn't care for their program. I was doing a communications thing, and I wasn't feeling like I was fulfilled. And she was gonna get back into school, so I went with her. She took a leap with me. I said, well, I'm gonna go with you. So we transferred, she started back at ETSU. I transferred, and we graduated together. And it was just luck, man. My senior project was, we had to, literally make a project. It could be you could write a script, you could shoot a short film, you could whatever. And, I had a friend that I just got back into wrestling with. I mean, there were years I was out of the wrestling bubble. It was sports, it was film, but he got me back in. I got back on the WWE train. I got into New Japan. I started watching old indies that I hadn't watched since I was a teenager, just old matches. I'm showing Haley, like, look at this, how crazy this shit is. And I hit up my buddy Caleb, man. He runs Resolute Wrestling in Crossville, Tennessee. I went to high school with him.
A very fun promotion, by the way.
Hey, yeah, Ben. Yeah, he could. Boston Nook over here will tell you. Every time he's been to Resolute Wrestling, he has been entertained at the least.
Wildly entertained. There's seeds of good wrestling there, and every time I go, I see a match, I'm just like, that's better than I expected. And every time I go and see something that I go, you know what, that made me laugh really hard. And
hey, it's an Outlaw, man. It's a small town. It's everything about wrestling. We get to have fun, and you're right, man. We've had some really great talent come through those doors. We've had, Alex Zane's a big one now. Ari Sterling was there. At one point we were one of the few places that booked him. That was back in he was more music than wrestling, and then thankful he really hit wrestling hard. But that's where I met Alex Zane. That's where
Alex Zane, by the way, talented rapper.
Yeah, fact. I mean, very. You can look at the guy and tell he's creative, and he is in every facet of his life. He's a creative guy. I got to call a match with Tracy Smothers, RIP, at Resolute Wrestling. That's where I met Tracy. A lot of Impact talent. So yeah, man. Caleb, he brings in good talent. He gives that local crowd what they want, but he still understands. We want to put on some good wrestling matches. So, I just hit him up out of the blue and was like, I'm doing this wrestling podcast thing for my senior project, man. I want to, I take everything I do, I take it. I mean, I'm a fun guy. I like to think I definitely, I like to have a good time, but, I like everything to be the best it can be. If it's going to be funny, let's make it really funny. If it's serious, let's make it pull on the heartstrings, that kind of So I wanted my senior project. It could have been me and my buddy just talking, but I wanted to have an interview with a legit promoter and talk about some inside ball and this and that. And you know, I hadn't talked to Caleb in years. We hit it off, and I graduated, thank God. And blessed, yeah, almost didn't, but I did. And I moved back home, and I mean, it was kind of that it's probably not the most adult thing to say. I didn't just want to go into a 9-to-5. I was lucky enough I didn't have to stress about that right away. So I just said, hey man, you know, is it cool? I noticed no one's filming your matches, like no one's filming your Resolute shows. Could I maybe do that? And you know, it's the wrestling business. If you're going to do something, you want something for yourself. I said, let me do it. Maybe I do commentary. That was the dream growing up. It was to do football commentary or basketball or, you know, play-by-play stuff like you said, man. And he's like, sure, you know, absolutely. So I started filming his shows, doing commentary, not good. But that's a lot of bad reps, which I still have moments, we all do. But a lot of bad reps went into those shows that thankfully not a ton of people will see. I filmed, edited, did commentary for 3 shows that I believe they're still on High Spots. So anyone that has High Spots Network, you can hear the worst commentary of me. It's there, but there's good there. There's me and Brett Eisen doing a match together. That's to this day makes me giggle. Some stuff we get away with. And of course that's, you know, that's where I met Brett, was Resolute. So
didn't you do one with Lane too?
I
remember Lane did commentary on one when I went with.
Yes, he did. You're absolutely right. That was right at the tail end. But when we stopped, we don't film all the matches now. Like we don't do the full show. We film all the matches, but the production value of like sitting down, editing it, doing all that, that's not happening at the moment. We are
fair.
very, very outlaw. We put it out. But you're absolutely right. Lane, his new handle on Twitter, everybody keeps posting the old handle. He's got a new handle. I assure you. Did a show. He came down and we had some fun. And I did, man. I got a lot of good reps. I got to meet Brett, and then that's really, you know, Resolute Wrestling is, I say, that was the window that got me in. And then Brett Eisen is the man that I owe. I mean, personally, we're boys, but like professionally, it's him. Like Brett, you know, got me where I am because of just getting in a car with him. No lie.
So let's talk about Brett and kind of like a larger conversation about, you know, everyone sees, you know, your KOBK and everyone here is KOBK. No one knows really like what it is, what it represents, like what like the larger meaning of it is. Like explain Brett and then the larger context of KOBK.
So Brett was my second interview. I didn't do a lot of them after I graduated, but I interviewed him. Man, the truth of it is, and people, we are, you know, he's my best friend, but I was a fan of that guy the moment I saw him. Before I met him, he was on a flyer, and I saw him, and I just thought right away, like, he reminded me of Kingpin from Daredevil and all that, and I was like, man, this guy's got a story. Like, I know it in my heart, and he's obviously a very quiet guy. The first couple times I was around him, he was super quiet, but I just asked him, hey man, you know, next week, you know, you're here. He's a very professional guy. He shows up in time to, you know, get what all he needs to be done. He's not come in at the last second, do the match stuff. So I was like, there's plenty of time. You know, is it cool if, you know, we do an interview? And he was, you know, absolutely. So that was, I mean, the first time I really talked to Brett was on this interview I did with him where we talked about, you know, and this is in 2017. So, you know, it's a lot of Brett was talking about, you know, who he was trained by and early days of Brett Eisen and, you know, tag team days. And we talked a little bit about Righteous Jesse, and that's right when Southern Underground Pro, I believe they were about to have their second show. It was,
sounds on point. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It may have been, they were about to have, it was at the Cobra. It was that show at the Cobra, I believe, where he wrestled Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was right before that.
Yeah, the second one was at the Cobra. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it was that one. It was right before that show, so we talked about that a little bit, and MMA and movies, and we kind of hit it off, and Resolute, we'd see each other. They ran at that time. It was bi-weekly, so we'd see each other a couple Fridays every month, and we just kept kind of clicking, and what it came down to was he needed a ride. He needed a ride one weekend to a show, I believe in Lewisburg, and I had already pitched the filmmaker in me. I wanted to do a documentary about independent wrestling. The ins and outs of it, and this was before I understood, the unwritten, the behind the curtain and all that. You got to think this is all I knew was like, I knew of Ring of Honor and WWE, and then I get out of wrestling forever, and now I'm back. So before I learn all this, it's like, I just want to do a documentary. And he was like, you know what, man, let's do it. Why not? So, that's what started. I kind of started driving him to shows, and we'd film stuff. I mean, I've got probably a year and a half, 2 years of footage of Brett. We haven't really chopped up because I kept telling myself, this is the end, the Gage match was going to be the end. And then this was going to be the end. We've just kept going. So at this point, man, if you include stuff we have released, I mean, I've got 4 years of footage on Brett Eisen, man. I've got
4 years, man.
Yeah, man. It doesn't feel like it, but I've got all this. I mean, I'm going to use, obviously, one day. I feel like we're building to something, but we clicked. That's the easiest way to say it. Long story long, we clicked. We got in the car together. Anyone in wrestling knows the quickest way to figure out if you and someone can be friends is to do a couple drives with them. And, man, we've never, I mean, we talk every day. Me and that guy have never ever came close to a fight, or just, we kind of always find ourselves either on the same wavelength, or one of us is kind of down and the other's kind of up. So, it's pretty crazy. We tell people Brett's the one that said it. It's like, we feel like we're from two different timelines, but we're like here together, like that, the yin and yang kind of thing, man. You can't really tell by looking at us, but, just a lot of things in common with me and that guy. That's our bro. And so it started, the KOBK stuff started. It was going to be a brand change for Brett. Brett, of course, is the pit bull. He's always going to be the pit bull down here. But he's always looking to evolve. The thing about Brett Eisen, you love him or hate him, that guy he never rests on anything. He's always evolving. He's always changing up something, whether it be in ring or out of ring. So he was ready for a brand change. The KOBK thing started as a joke between us in messaging, like, it's kind of that thing we all have with our friends where it's like someone says something funny or something, and it was just like KOBK, like it's just our thing. And that weekend with Nolan Edward, man, the original plan, it was going to be Brett's moniker, that it is Kill or Be Killed Brett Eisen. And that weekend we went up to ICW. It was me, Nolan, and Brett all in a car. Me driving, Nolan stitching patches on his new deathmatch pants. He was so the whole drive I would just hear him like, guys, I've got 4 patches done. Just man, bonding, and they of course had a match. They each were on Pit Fighter, and then the next night, some things changed on the card, and Brett and Nolan wrestled each other, and what started as kind of a moniker for Brett turned to, it was the three of us. It was Weird KOBK. And then, Akira, guy, he just kind of, in the fold of it, man, it really for me, when I met Akira the first time, it was when Brett wrestled Eddie Kingston, the first time we went to ICW.
Up in Jersey, right?
Yeah, Jersey. We're up in Jersey, 4th of July weekend last year. And,
I was there.
Yes, sir, man. You had a hell of a day. I remember talking to you. Shout out everybody that I saw that night. That was some of the most beautiful, just family energy, happy to see each other. It was, and it was such a weird time, and it was, that's a special weekend for me. I'll go to the grave with, and Akira calmed Brett. You know, I never go in the locker rooms before I was booked, right? I would make these drives with Brett, and I would, I'm still paying for tickets, even though I'm getting the guy there. And, I'm shooting documentary stuff with him, but in the locker room a little bit, like before or after the show, but like during the show, that's not my place. So, Akira really just kind of was that olive branch of like, what's up, man? And just kind of calm Brett. And, that's the match he never thought he would have. So because of that, because of Akira kind of not even realizing he was being a brother, he was. And because of that, and just because of how, man, he just fits that kill or be killed, he's just kind of a part of it because of that. And then, and Hardway Heater and Luther X are just, they're the Crux boys, and they're the KOBK kids, and they're two dudes that, man, we just love. Like, Heater is someone I talk to every day. Luther is one that we've gotten so close this last year, and it's just an organic thing. It's not about politics. It's not about bookings. It's not about tag team titles or any of that shit. It's like we just all care about each other. It's not about wins, losses. It's about, you're gonna, I mean, you saw it last night or whatever, this past weekend at TWE, man. We had, everybody won but Akira. Akira lost to Jaden in a super close match, but even in that loss, he felt, you knew Akira gave everything, and that's really what KOBK is, man. It's, you might beat us, but unless you kill us, we're gonna keep coming back, even if that 1, 2, 3, this match is over, I'm not dead, you're going to see me again kind of thing. And that's kind of everybody in that, man.
I told you I'm applying for the role of wacky cousin who gets invited to the barbecues.
Well, that's the thing that's really funny about this is that, like, the biggest question I used to get was, hey, man, you think Brett will do my podcast? And it's always like, probably not. But now it's, hey, man, what do I got to do to be in KOBK? And it's like, I mean, there's nothing to be done. Like, we've got an eye out. We may or may not have, plans for a future, some things. We're always, looking an eye out for people that do fit that, but by no means are we taking applications, anything like that, because it's what it is. It's organic. It's one that you very rarely catch one of us alone at this point. There's always a couple of us together, and it's something that makes it just this wrestling thing so much better. I mean, I love it. It's great. It's so cool to put on good shows, but it's awesome to put on just cool shows with your people that you care about, Monday to Thursday, not just Friday to Sunday.
That's the thing I love the most about independent wrestling, and you guys are some of my close. I mean, the KBK crew is some of my closest. I mean, family, honestly, in independent wrestling is. It's that sense of family. It's that sense of togetherness. It's that bond. It's that unity. It's that, we're all in this together feeling. And you guys literally have a name for it, but it's, that's that visceral feeling is really what draws me to independent wrestling. I always joke that I go, 50% for the wrestling and 50% for the socialization, but it's the truth. You're there to be with your like-minded people and your friends. And you guys have a crew, and that's tremendous. So, one thing I've noticed with you, in what you've been doing recently is that, and I'm just going to pay you a huge compliment here, is that, you...
Please do.
You're the one difference I've seen in your quality of work from the beginning of the pandemic to now is that you're owning it. And you're confident now, and you have a sense of belonging, and you have a sense that you went from I could originally hear the timidness in your voice in play-by-play, and now you're acting as if.
and you're saying, I'm supposed to be, and in turn, you are supposed to be there, and you're good enough to be there, and you're one of the better commentators in independent wrestling, because, and I guess my question is, at what point did it click for you? Where you said, this is mine, I own this?
Honestly, it's more recently than, probably anyone realizes. I've really felt it these last few months, probably since the Jordan Oliver, Nolan Edward match for New South. I've felt more confident because that was a crazy night. There was a lot of stuff going on. I ended up doing that match solo. I didn't think that was going to happen. So, it made me have to, because those are two, again, we're all fans here. Like, I love getting to do what I do, but, I'm such a big fan of Nolan and Jordan that I felt it, when I realized, like, I'm in this alone. It was like, you've got to, man, this has to be the best match you've ever called, because it's just you, and you have two guys that, A, you're a fan of, that you want it to be the best it can be, and B, a lot of people are probably going to watch this match because these two dudes are super, super over, super, super popular right now. So it was a moment where it was like clutch time, like, you
got thrown into the fire, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, though, that I love about it. That's the thing that New South did for me, that, Righteous Jesse stepped away, and, of course, shout out VHS. Is it VHS Tonight? I always feel like I screw up his, first off, it's VHS 24/7, 365.
Yeah, no, it's for all your VHS needs, frankly. Hold on,
yes.
You vamp, and I'm gonna do this thing here. It's Righteous Jesse VHS Guy, by the way.
Okay, VHS Guy, shout out, man.
At Righteous Jesse. If you are in need of any VHS whatsoever, hit up Righteous Jesse on Twitter, and he will hook you up.
We know. Let me tell you.
We know a guy with tapes.
Jesse stepped away, and he banged the drum for me hard. Basically told New South, you guys are crazy if you don't give this dude a shot. And thankfully they did. They threw me in. I went from, I had done commentary for Resolute, which again, not a ton of people saw, to, hey man, you're going to be the lead man for this big show that will be on IWTV.
Weekly. We're starting a weekly show on IWTV in a prime spot on Tuesday nights, and here's the ball, Mos.
Yeah. Like, the first show I showed up, it was Americana last year, and it was scary, man. It was scary. I was with Brick. Shout out Brick. More personality than anyone can imagine. I miss that dude.
A human ball of energy. I love that man more than should be legally allowed.
Same. I haven't seen him in forever. We're definitely thinking of you. We got some personal stuff. Shout out Brick. Cannot wait to have him back in the world of wrestling, because he means so much to a lot of people, and I want to know that. I know he knows it, but he needs to hear it. But yeah, me and Brick, man, they threw us in there, and before I knew it, just what you said, it was, hey man, every Tuesday, and there was a little bit there where it was a lot of rotation, so that was learning. It was, me and, some of the wrestlers. It was me and Dump. It was me and, fill in the blank. So I learned a lot there, and here lately, last few months, been me and Carmen. Carmen's learning a lot. He's been thrown in there with someone like me who, now that I'm confident as I am, I do everything. I almost to a detriment to, my partner, because I love it both. I love calling play-by-play. I love telling the story. I love doing everything. So if, at times, if I kind of, I lay it up for you, if I'm leaving you room to talk and you don't jump on it right away, I'm going to take it right back. And that's something that, shout out Struggles, Dylan Hells gave me notes. Dylan Hells known for his notes, how harsh Dylan can be, but I'm one that I love it. I love being told, hey man, you suck at this, and this. I'd rather be told that than, hey man, I like this, and this, because I'm like, cool. Because I think a lot of what I do, I don't like at times, but
But it's constructive criticism, and that's what a lot of if people who are listening to this show, like, life lessons, accept constructive criticism. Like, even if someone's telling you suck at this, it's constructive criticism.
Absolutely. I appreciate everything he every note he gave me, and then the big step of that is it's a 2-step process of you accepting what they're telling you and now you using it, not just listening and going about your business, because a lot of people, will ask for advice and you'll give it to them, and it's either you get a yeah, but, and I hate that, or it's one ear out the other, and the next time it's the same crap, and that's where it's just I'm done at that point. But Dylan and Southern Underground Pro, man, in the middle, after I'd been with New South a couple months, it's a collective time, and they let me lead. I was the anchor for Swinging of the Axe during the collective, which that was a big step for me. I think there are things there, I didn't love that I did, but that was my first live stream, and it's the same thing of I'm in there with a rotating cast of, it was Brick, it was Dom, it was Koo. I love getting to work with those guys, especially Koo, man. I could call a match with Kevin Koo any day of the week. He's just fun to be around.
He's really smart.
Super smart guy. Dom, the thing with Dom is he's so good at commentary, there's really no need for me there. He's giving you what you need. You don't need me to do anything because he sees it better than I do. And, so that was learning. I learned a lot being in there with Dom and Koo, and that was a big step for me. And then it's just everything's kind of snowballed to now I'm confident in what I'm doing because everyone, even people I think are better than me, are telling me, dude, you're really good at this. Like your emotion, because at the end of the day, the stuff that I don't do well, the stuff that I mess up on, I think my emotion and just how genuine I am makes up for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just, like, for TWE this weekend, there were a couple things. That's the only place I ring announce. So it takes me a couple matches to kind of get back in that groove. And I hate it because that crowd, they love me and I don't deserve it, man. TWE crowd, you're talking about bad, man. Jaden and Cheyenne threw me in there to ring announce. They booked me to ring announce for them when they weren't really doing a lot of commentary. So that was bad, man. I had one of the coolest moments of the year so far for me is at the New South show at TWE a couple weeks ago. I had a fan tell me, he walked up to me right after the show. Like the cameras just got cut off. The recording's over. He's right there to walk up and say, man, I was here at your first show you ring announced at TWE and you sucked. And I was like, yeah, I did. And he goes, now you're great at everything you do. And he shook my hand and he walked away. And that's all he wanted to tell me. And that was like, thank you. Like,
that rules.
You're right. Yeah, it does rule because he's right. I still think I suck at times, but I'm getting better. It means something to me. So all of that led to, July, October, November, we get to January, February, and then now here it's just, I'm doing it every weekend. I'm blessed in that way that, like, I don't really have a weekend off. I haven't had a weekend off since last July, and I don't have a weekend off. I don't think, literally through December. Like, the rest of the year I've got stuff going on, which I can't say how thankful I am, but that's the confidence in it, man. The fact that I'm doing it. When you're doing it all the time, it's easy to kind of get confident because, like, I guess I don't ever kind of get cold, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always running, kind of ready to go.
Well, I think a lot of that speaks to willingness and efforting. And I know efforting is not a word, but it's probably my favorite word, if you get my
Love
point.
It.
Like, you are always one who says, I'll do it.
Happily.
I'll do it. Just throw it to me, I'll do it. Throw it to me, I'll do it. And no questions asked and no bitching and moaning. That I've never heard of you bitching and moaning ever. So, but there's a willingness there. And speak to the importance of willingness in wrestling.
It's so easy. It's so easy to get comfortable and get complacent and get to a point where this or that's enough. I've done this or that. I'm not doing that kind of thing. And I don't feel that way. I mean, a year and a half ago, I was begging to let me do anything. Let me film, let me edit, let me sweep the ring. I don't care. Just let me be a part of your show. And I got told no a lot. I mean, like I said earlier, I'm there with Brett, and we're there early or whatever for him. He goes in the locker room and I sit in the car until, the fans go. Cause at that point, I'm not on that side of the curtain. Like, I don't do that. But there's a lot of me just that's kept me humble, man. I'm always going to be humble. Like, that confidence you talk about, like, it's there, but it wasn't that long ago, man. I was not good enough for anything. I was not on anyone's radar. Like, legit, I'm not security worthy, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, we'll let you sit in the crowd and cheer. And I'm like, sweet, cool. I'll be there. But that's it.
Next to Ben.
Yeah, I'll be there with my boys. Like, I'll have some fun, but deep down it's killing me. I want to be on the other side of the curtain. I'll be a gopher. Whatever you need. And it was no, we're good. Because the truth of it is, it's the hardest thing for everybody to swallow in this is, like, everyone's got their people. Every promotion has their people, right? So whenever someone says, hey man, how do I get in commentary? I'm like, listen, I had to have a world pandemic. And still, it took people saying no for them to go, well, shit, I guess we'll give him, let him have it. Whatever. If he sucks, we'll get rid of him, kind of thing. That's what it took for me to get in. So don't ask me how this happened. I don't know how to get in. I don't know. But because of that, you're right. I'm always down to say yes. I'm always down. Whatever you need, man. I still to this day, like, shit, I helped set up a ring with you up north a little bit not too long ago, man. Legit. Like, it was like us and some other people and like Jeremy Wyatt are like the only people here setting up this ring. Like, I don't know, it's been a couple years at this point, but you know what I mean? It's one of those weird things where you're like, okay, I can help set a ring up, but like,
it's there and it needs to be done, and so someone's going to do it, and
we're going to do it. Let's do it. Let's knock this out, and we did it. And that's not the only ring I've helped set up. Like, always be down to help the show, man. Make it the best show it can be. So because of that, there are times now where I won't say no, but if you want me to do something that if I can think maybe I can help make it better, I might pitch that. And if you still want me to do the other thing, especially if you're paying me, it's your show. I'll do it. Because I want it to be whatever the best show you think it is, let's do it. I want it to be the best it can be. But at the end of the day, we're trying to get whatever the show the promoter wants for his audience, his or her audience, or non-binary audience. That's what the goal is. So whatever you need, man. I've never said no. I don't think I've ever said no at any show I've been on. Like, I don't think I've ever said no on anything. I think it's either been yes or it's been, how about this? That's just, if it's kind of like when you hear a bad idea, in the booking room, if you don't have a better idea, just don't speak up.
Sometimes shutting up is good.
Yeah. Well, that's the biggest lesson too. I'm glad you said that, man. It's a lesson that I learned that I don't adhere to all the time now, because I feel like I've definitely, I definitely have put enough work in where I can be a little more opinionated. But man, since from 2017 until the 2021, let's say the beginning of this year, my motto was mouth shut, ears open. That's the way it should be. I still am that way, especially around these, I'm blessed to be around all this talent and in these booking rooms and learning a lot. So it still is mouth shut, ears open. I may open my mouth a little more now.
What stuff, the passion's there, obviously, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the enthusiasm's there, and it hasn't been beat out of you, and hopefully never will. But no. What stuff has made you, and I hate the term, but like mark out? Like, what has been your biggest quote unquote mark out moment? Like, what is the stuff that, like,
will always get you just going absolutely wild and rekindle that passion for wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my people. I'm sure people want a sexier answer, but like Brett Eisen matches, Nolan Edward, Akira, Heater, Luther, a really well told story in the ring, something that maybe at this point, because you know just as well as I do, when you watch enough wrestling, there are times what's going to happen before they do it. You can feel it. You know their style, maybe a move set. So when something goes against that, when talent kind of steps out of that comfort zone a little and tries something and it works, that gets me excited. But it's always going to be Brett, man. It's going to be, there's been times, I'm sure.
So when you have a personal investment in the people that are involved,
well, yeah, I mean, that's always there. But it is too, from just a commentator standpoint. It's like I'm saying, it's good storytelling. It's talent that really wants it. It's young talent that they understand this, the big lights are on and they're meeting those, expectations. Like, I'm trying to think of a recent example. There's nothing like, I love going to intermission, and if we have new talent on a show or someone making their debut or whatever, if they have a good match or a good spot or something, I love rushing and you write to them and like, this was dope. This was awesome. This was that, because I think it is important. I think we do. No doubt about it. People do pat themselves on the back a lot now, but there is too. We are really hard on ourselves. Like, me and my dudes we always think our stuff sucks. So I love being the one to tell you when you do something well. I'll definitely, if you ask me, I'll tell you what you're not good at. From my perspective, we all see wrestling different. Whenever someone says, "Hey, Mose, critique this for me," I say, "Listen, I will, but like, I'm one person. This is how I see it. My word is not the be all end all. No one's is. You have to, I want you to take everything you hear and then take what's in you as the talent." Whenever someone says, "Hey, what do you think about this and that?" I always like to say, "Well, what do you think in your gut? Like, what's your gut saying?" "Well, this." "Go with that then. You know your character better than me." And then I might try to help from there. But, that it's just, again, that genuine excitement. When I get that from talent, that's always going to get me just like ready to jump. Tell Dylan Hells I said it.
So I'll cite an example, kind of what you seem to be speaking to. We last night ended up seeing a match. Brett Eisen faced a younger kid who wears goggles and a bandana and stuff like that. Goes by the name of Dylon,
right?
And he's had kind of a rough last year, but I think he had a tremendous match. He had some rough points during the match as well, but I think that he showed more glimmers in that match than he'd showed in a long time. That got me really excited because just like, all right, cool, he's starting to feel it again. Like, that seems to be kind of like similar to what you're describing.
For sure. Yeah. Dylon, he wants it. He's hungry. He's really wanting to put himself out there. He's really wanting to get reps, which I appreciate. A part of that too, though, man, it's something that I got to get in because it's the truth. He'll tell you a lot of that's Brett.
Oh yeah, no, I know it's Brett. There's a pattern. There's a complete pattern here. But.
Yeah, the in-ring stuff, but it's kind of like, to use a sports term, it's like when you played the Patriots with Brady, right? It was they either beat you before you got to the field, or you were up and ready to meet them, and you were going to have a performance. You may not win, but you're going to have that pat on the back after. That's what I credit it to, because no doubt about it, Brett is an absolute professional, and he's going to make you look great in the ring. But I think just being in a match with him, especially in that venue, in that setting for Dylon, he was nervous, but he met it, and that's a big deal for him, no doubt.
Yeah, that's what I meant. He
yes.
You could see him waffling a little bit during that match. It's going to be on IWTV when TWE puts it up, but I think that you could see him vacillating between, okay, I can do this, and oh crap, but there were the moments of I can do this. You're like, come on, bud, yeah, like you can do this,
exactly.
Yeah.
But by the time he left, when he comes out, that crowd, like you said, you see the goggles, you see this. Mm-hmm. They weren't sure of him. By the end of that match, again, that Brett wins, spoiler alert, that crowd cared about Dylon. That's special.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, there's obviously a really, really, really good veteran involved in that who has a very long pattern of doing that with younger kids, but also, like, you know, it was great to see
the lights not being too big.
Yeah, it was great to see the lights not being too big. So that just made me think of that. So, anyways, speaking of younger kids and speaking of, you know, kind of that next generation, you know, you're involved in a bunch of different promotions now, across the Southeast and hopefully across the country as we're coming up. Give me 5 wrestlers who, you know, a year from now, who are not on anybody's radar right now, who a year from now people are going to be like, you know, son of a bitch, that's someone we slept on and we shouldn't have slept on.
Man,
Or 3, give me 3.
I was going to say, I'm going to lead off with this one. He is on radars, but I still think he's somebody that potentially wise a year from now, you're going to be seeing everywhere. That's Kevin Ryan. Very high on Kevin Ryan. I know that's not a name more people are hearing, but I think it's someone people are still sleeping on now. A little bit lower than that, I guess, on the totem pole, if you will. I'm high on Tipton, Billy Tipton, Tennessee Sunshine. He does some things. He's got a persona I like. He's got a good base. For sure, he's got some growth that he's still got to have, but he's a kid that he's not afraid to get in the car. He's not afraid to put some miles up, to do a 4 to 6 to 8 minute match, whatever you need. And he's going to give you everything he's got. And I appreciate that. To that credit, I mean, might as well, you're seeing his name more. Noah Hospin's one that, the area is very high on now because of where he's out of, but I've seen him.
I like him a lot.
He is. He's one that I saw him a couple of weeks before everyone else did. We had him at Resolute, and I remember thinking, great, there's a look that there's something there, and this is before I realized he was a stallion. Something kind of there. He's getting reps. Every time I see him, he's getting a little bit better. And then someone I'm sure that you
for context, by the way, Noah Hossman is a Kurt Stallion trainee.
Yes.
He's a Kurt Stallion trainee who's relocated to Tennessee. There's something there with him, most definitely. He has the Rick Steiner headgear. He's you'll be seeing him. People who are listening to this, you'll be seeing him because he's got something there. He's you know, a little ways away, but he's definitely got something.
And that's the thing is, I think he's got the pedigree. I hope he does there. He's going to be getting some stuff maybe a little before he's ready because of that. But I think, again, I don't think the lights will be too big for him when it comes. And I'm really looking forward to see where he's at again in a year. And then the last one, it's someone that me and you have been talking about it all weekend. We saw him at Resolute, Anthony Taylor.
Yo.
I just heard his name. I've heard his name a few times. I've been around him at the Tullahoma promotion. That's been, I think, pre-COVID, though. That's been forever ago. We saw him a few days ago, and there's definitely something to that guy. He shot out Mike Cobb and Caden Sade. One that, for sure, of the names you've mentioned, that the fewest people have heard about that, if he could be on a show or two with some bigger eyes on it, that's a guy you could see a lot more.
So, talk about, you know, kids who have some growth. You know, your growth has been exponential, especially over the last year or so. Where do you see yourself a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? What's your plan? Where do you want to go? What's your, you know, what's on the to-do list?
I've been struggling with that, man. My goal really at this point is just keep getting better. There's not really an independent promotion that I necessarily want to work for. There are definitely talent I want to call more of their matches, but I'm not really, you know, I'm more of like, there's people I want to work with. I want to do more matches with struggles. I want to call more matches of, you know, fill in the blank. But as far as me at places, I mean, I'd love to venture out of the South more, but at the same time, I am not afraid to be the Southern commentary guy. Like, I love where I'm from. I'm completely happy being that guy because the talent down here that I'm around, that I'm happy and very proud to call friends. Man, I'll call their matches every day if I can. So, I mean,
so let me interject, because there's no one I know more willing to hop in the car too. Like, this boy has wheels, will travel. Like, if you are a promotion that is not necessarily in the South and you're willing to give my boy a try, like, give him a try, because we talked about that willingness, bro.
I love being on the road. My whole life, I did sports. I did all kinds of extracurricular activities. My mom's a teacher, so that was very important to her, right? Getting that college resume going before I was even, in second grade kind of thing. Little did she know what kind of slacker, man, she had coming her way. But, because of that, you're right, man. I like traveling, man. I love being new places. I love being on the road. I mean, I'm absolutely not afraid to make that trip, man. It's definitely not that at all. Like, if you want me, man, holler at me. I'd love to do business. Weekends are, like I said, they're full right now between Action, New South, TWE. I go to Resolute when I can on Fridays. I've got NGW coming up. They're based out of Tennessee at the Knoxville area. So, I'm more than happy to travel. I'm just very blessed to be very booked up at the moment. That's because of that. That's the only goal, bro. I want to keep getting better. I don't want to be looked at as anything more than somebody that helped every show he was on. I don't want people to be like, oh man, Moses the man, all this shit. Like, that's cool. I appreciate it. But like, if every show you're going like, that guy didn't take away, that guy made this better, that's the goal, man. That's all.
All right, we're gonna turn a little left on here. Notre Dame is your school of choice, college football wise.
Yeah, fact.
Y'all lose everybody.
Everybody, bro. Like,
and can I just ask you a favor?
Okay.
Week 1, please win in Tallahassee.
I would love to.
Oh my God.
I would love it. Of course I grew up in SEC country, so I get the ACC hate. Of course, you being a Gator man, I totally understand that feud, that rivalry. I'm with you, man. I would love to see it. This is
Don't lose to Florida State, man.
No,
don't lose to Florida State,
bro. I may have been. I think I was 3 when Notre Dame beat them in South Bend in one of those game of the century. The 2-point conversion. So. Mm-hmm. I'm with you, man. There's a hate for Florida State in me that it's kind of simmering now because they've been awful. But, when week 1 kicks off, me and you both are going to be saying Free Shoe University, bro.
So, seriously, how'd the Notre Dame thing happen?
Man, it honestly was Ty Willingham. I was a huge Titan fan. The Tennessee Oilers officially became the Tennessee Titans. I believe I was like 9-10, when that happened. The first year when they went to the Super Bowl and all that. So I really got into football with that. Nothing like having your hometown team win a lot. That's cool, especially at that age. So I was an Eddie George, Steve McNair, Tennessee Titans, Javon Curse, Frank Wycheck, Kevin Dyson, Samari Roll. I can name them all. Let's go. But shout out Blaine Bishop. But
shout out Blaine Bishop, indeed.
So that was football to me. It was the Titans, and then your world expands a little bit, and then you're like, oh, there's college football, which I knew of the Vols, but my folks weren't huge Vol fans. My mom's from Alabama, so she was kind of a Bama fan, but like wasn't necessarily diehard as much as it's like, oh, Alabama's playing. That's cool. So no real college roots here, just more of we love football in this house. My older brother played football, so I remember watching. It was Ty Willingham's first game on NBC, I'm pretty sure, and I fell in love with that team. They had Carlisle Holiday at quarterback. They're running like triple option offense. You had this defense that was scoring touchdowns, and they again, back to Florida State. They go to Tallahassee and beat Florida State that year. That was a big win. And then, of course, they rematch in the Gator Bowl and Florida State beats them. And I was a very upset young boy that day. But it was Ty Willingham, man. I stuck with him. And then it was Charlie Weiss, and I somehow still stuck with him. And it was Brady Quinn. It was Jeff Samardzija. It was Tom Zbikowski. I love the passion.
Hell of a boxer, by the way.
You're telling me, man. I remember trying to get to that fight. It was in like New York. It was like he was fighting in New York, and I was like, I don't know, I was a teenager or something, like I may have been fresh in college, just like, I've got to go see this man throw hands.
Again, context, Tom Zbikowski was a safety
fact
at Notre Dame who also moonlighted as a professional boxer.
A pretty good professional boxer. Safeties are crazy though, bro.
Safeties are, I mean, like, there's a lot of head trauma going on there.
And if you add to the head trauma, he also returned punts at times.
Oh, God. I completely forgot about that. You are also tied for first with our mutual friend Stoney as the biggest Titans fan I know. How you looking this year? How you feeling? The South is getting better.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
A lot of losses. I wasn't very high on the Jadeveon Clowney signing when it happened. Very proud of how I felt. My initial reaction where we are now with all that.
He's washed, dude.
Bro, yeah. I saw some hot takes about with Jadeveon Clowney at the Browns now, this defense is going to be unstoppable. And I'm like, bro, he could not get on the field last year, bro. My expectations are this. I think we have a coach that comes from a lineage that will always know the loopholes, which I appreciate now that he's my guy. He was recently called on, I know some of this audience will know of the dark side of the ring. Vice also has a dark side of football now, and they did a thing on Belichick, bro.
I shut it off after 20 minutes. I couldn't stand it.
I thought it. I'm laughing, thinking to myself, I know one person in the Chattanooga area right now that's like, this show is stupid.
It was big stupid.
Well,
garbage. It was hot garbage.
You turned it off. You didn't hear the last 5 minutes or so. This is what it said about a coach that has yet to win a Super Bowl. So Mike Vrabel, he's basically the new Belichick now. He's the Belichick, and I'm like, this man has not got to the Super Bowl yet. Guys, calm down. But with that being my coach, I have to agree. I think he is en route to bring multiple Super Bowls to the 615. No, man, honestly, I think my expectations are I think they're going to win enough games to maybe be in the playoffs. I would love if Mike Vrabel, who I'm sure has already sold his soul happily, he finds someone else to sell theirs so we can get Julio Jones. That would be dope.
He's coming to England, dog. He's coming to England.
Well, that's what I read. Literally, I read this morning. Really not happy about that. But I guess if one of us gets him, I'll be happy because at least someone I'm close with will get to appreciate. I mean, I know we have Atlanta friends right now that are like, screw you guys. But yeah, man, a playoff team. I love watching Derrick Henry play. When Tannehill got signed, I was very much not sure about that. Obviously, I ate some crow. Very happy with what Tannehill's doing. It's a fun team to watch, man, and that's something like there were some lean years there with, at the end of Jeff Fisher, and there's been some lean years since Jeff Fisher, bro, and I'm just kind of enjoying getting to see a team that it's just fun to watch.
Are you worried with Derrick Henry about the fact that running backs go from really, really good to falling off a cliff overnight?
Well, I think it's
not
just
to plant that seed, but I'm just saying.
Well, hey man, no, it's already planted. I mean, we all have our biases, but I'm thankful again. I've watched football. I mean, actively since I was 7, 8, 9, whatever it was. So I get it, man. You're right. Especially as hard as that guy runs.
Yeah.
It's just it's a tough league. You see,
it's beautiful, and I'm also worried.
It's a violent, beautiful game where, even the toughest of tough, man, break down eventually. So, it's something, man, I try not to worry about. You just got to enjoy today. I think, he's got miles on him. He has great off-season workouts. The guy looks like
negative
like a
15% body fat.
No, exactly. He's a prototype. So I'm hoping that helps, but I'm very much one that I appreciate everything Derrick Henry has already done for me as a fan.
You have your candle lit to him in your home, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. I was a big jersey guy, and then I got out of it, but now because of Ison, I'm getting back into jerseys, and that is my next Titan jersey. I was gonna hold off and hopefully get Julio, but now I believe I'm gonna have to get a Derrick Henry and an AJ Brown pretty soon.
Yeah, AJ Brown's truth. That dude.
Fact.
He's real good. I would love him on my team. I would absolutely love him on. I just want a receiver at this point, but we're not going to go into that. Final question.
Okay.
Your karaoke go-to.
Oh, Simple Man.
Always a classic.
Fact.
Always a classic. Your favorite rendition of it, and how does it involve Mance Warner?
Well, yeah, you're right. My favorite one is the Skinner version, but my favorite Simple Man moment is every single Mance Warner entrance, specifically in the Basement East or some wild ass show that I'm not on, and I've had a couple light beers myself.
Bizarro, it also worked very well.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, hey, you could have Mance Warner could be on the Castaway Island and build an entrance set, and that song could hit, and they would be a pop.
He breaks my rule, because usually I'm in the Grant Sawyer column of, God damn it, just don't wait till the hook of your song, just get out there. Just get out there.
Yep.
But he's the exception.
I think I tweeted that once. I think, I've had some pretty out-of-pocket tweets. That was one I think I said something like, if your name's not Mance Warner, do not wait that long to come out of the curtain.
It's true. You don't, whoever's listening to this, you don't have to wait till the hook.
No. Give me that first kind of boom, and let's hit it. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It worked enough for every wrestler who was great. You don't have to.
Yo, hey, it did not take HBK that long to get to the ring. That's all I'm saying.
Hulk Hogan came out in the first note. Bryan Danielson came out at the beginning of the Final Countdown.
Redacted.
Yeah, redacted. No, Bryan Danielson got to the turnbuckle by the hook of Final Countdown every time he was there. Just saying.
Fact.
Just saying.
You're there to get in the ring, not hit the curtain. Let's go.
Mose, you're a friend. You're a hell of a podcast guest. You are the star of the pandemic, in my opinion, and you just you complete me.
Oh man, no, I can't thank you enough, man. You are. When I first kind of was getting into the wrestling kind of fandom and wrestling Twitter and that whole family of independent wrestling, you were the bridge. You were the first. You're very much so the pillar, one of the pillars of the wrestling community, the family, and for you to put your name on me and be the first one to give me a hug and just kind of like, hey, Moses here, that meant a lot to me, man, and it still does to this day.
Well, I'm not like Masao. I'm like Taue, so still okay. Like not Masao.
Tell him.
All right, dude. How do people book you, get in touch with you, read your funny tweets? Just how do people contact you if they want to throw money at you?
Well, I'm usually not one to do that. If you're looking to spend money, please spend it on Brett Eisen, Akira, Nolan Edward, Hardway Heater, Luther X. But if you really want to throw me some of your money,
you have leftover money.
Yeah, if you have leftover money after you give it to all my peoples, I actually just started a storefront tier because my original plan I was going to do, I have one shirt up now. It's just Moe's and the KOBK font because everyone was begging for months. Moe's, you got to make a shirt. All right, cool. Well, I did this shirt and all the profits, I'm going to have it up for a little bit, but all the profits I make, I'm going to give all that to a Nashville animal shelter.
Cool.
And I've just decided, literally last night I decided this. I'm going to start like making stupid shirts for like all my peoples. I literally have one coming out tomorrow, and whoever my shirts are about, that's who your money's going to go to. So I'm not going to say what it is yet. My first one's for Heater. It will be up tomorrow. I will post it on my Twitter at MosKOBK. It's going to be very funny. And all the money, of course, will go to the talent that said shirts are for. I just said my Twitter. Hit me on that.
Which is MosKOBK.
Mo's KOBK. I say funny stuff. I talk a lot of shit on there because I know if anyone wants to fight me, I'll fight you because I know if you beat me up, I've got 5 guys way crazier than me that you have to fight after me. So you fucked up. Mo's KOBK Twitter. Thank anyone that supported me, anyone that's talked smack about me, any energy you've given me, I appreciate you.
Well, thank you, my friend. This was exactly what I hoped and dreamed in my maiden voyage back. So I appreciate it. No, seriously, thank you so much. And
thank you.
Keep your eyes on Mose. He is a rising star in the commentary and whatever else you need him world. So thank you all so much. We'll be back with the ad read in a minute. Thank you once again for listening. This meant a lot to come back. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling Network, check out our new PTB Wrestling Network store. Shop your favorite podcast logo and great merchandise like t-shirts, hoodies, and more. Just go to tpublic.com and type PTBW into the search. On the newest edition of Making Mount Rushmore, Andy Atherton is with J. Arsenio D'Amato, Ben Locke, and James Grunenberg to discuss the best face and heel turns in their memory. On the newest episode of With This Ring, Ryan and Cindy discuss the WCW career of Brian Pillman. From Cruiserweight to Hollywood Brawn to Loose Cannon, they cover it all. Marty Sleaze is back to start a new series on Pro Wrestling Love. He's with Stacy for part 1 and counting down the best of WWE from 2010 to 14. Our mates from the other side of the pond are flagging up the big issues on the newest episode of the Special Relations podcast. Rory, Ben, and Colin discuss many topics of hilarity and some seriousness. Our newest episode of NWA Crock and Roll, the boys are joined by Scott Shiflett, continue their look at Before They Were Crockett with the Road Warriors, Terry Taylor, Arn Anderson, and more. Please rate, review, and subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Just search Place to Be Nation Wrestling Network. Check out our other feeds on our quad of pods, too. The BTBN Pop Experience is all about pop culture. Jennifer Smith is always in the Jenny position with her unique takes on pop culture and life. Join JT Rosero, Aaron George, and Chad Campbell for great shows on wrestling, comics, and more with a North-South Connection feed. And Glenn and Scott Butler continue their spectacular journey through music, films, and the Non-Toxic Fanboys podcast, where they try to enjoy things they love. Find them at Non-Toxic Fanboys on Twitter, nontoxicfanboys.com, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join our rejuvenated Place to Be discussion group on Facebook. Go to Facebook, look up Place to Be, and request an invite. Discussions and fun with wrestling, movies, tournaments, and all forms of pop culture. Our 2021 stretch project is determining the greatest NWA/WCW wrestler of all time. Go to facebook.com/GWCW to join the group to discuss nominees. Be sure to check out placetobenation.com every day. We have new voices and fresh takes, bringing you articles and topics in the worlds of wrestling, sports, and pop culture, including Trent's SmackDown on Fox Report, Paulie's Perspective, and Matt's Disney live-action journey. If you're doing online shopping on Amazon, click the banner on the right side of the Place to Be Nation homepage. Takes you right to Amazon and helps us out with no cost to you. While you're there, pick up a copy of longtime listener Adrian Cotton's second book, AWO Big Time Players, Episode 2, Continuing to Grow.
It's a vivid description of the second episode of Alpha Wrestling Organization's program, Big Time Players. It's an ebook or a paperback. You can get both episodes in paperback form for $15.98. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in a couple weeks.